Um, Welcome back, everybody, to our Part 1 Council meeting for Wednesday, the 11th of February 2026. Just continuing on from earlier today, and we are jumping around a little bit with the agenda because there is a lot on it and just wary of priorities of what needs to be done. So we're now jumping to number 14, which is around the local water done well, initiating the shareholders committee for the Joint Waters CCO. So I'll invite Mike and Julie up to speak to this paper. That's page 243 of your papers, councillors. Oh, and sorry, Chris, I didn't see your beaming face online. Welcome.
Well, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Mike Munhunter Kwinga. Thank you, Your Worship and councillors. You'll see that we've got Chris online who will answer any questions that you may have, and Julie here with me, who's done a lot of work into this paper as well. Before we take the paper as read and open it up for questions, Julie's just got a couple of points in the paper that she'd like to draw your attention to, so I'll hand over to Julie.
Thank you, Mike. Kia ora koutou. Julie Keane, Transition Manager for Palmerston North City Council. As Mike said, we have been doing quite a bit of work over what feels like already a very short period of time to get us to this point. So just wanted to recap, we brought a paper to you on the 10th of December last year where Council had agreed to establish the Joint Committee of Council. The approval of the shareholder committee terms of reference was also included in that 10th of December report. You also agreed to the approval of the membership structure of the shareholder committee, which is obviously 3 members per council, and at least one of those is an elected member and 1 mana whenua representative. There was agreement to delegate all the necessary powers under the shareholders' agreement to the nominees that you're making to the shareholder committee, and that's essentially what we're here to confirm today. So this report is seeking your approval for the appointment of the 2 council representatives and the alternates. It also seeks your approval of the 3 mana whenua representatives that have been nominated by Ngā Tapawai Oahu, who you will be familiar with are the representative organisation Oropu across all of our iwi across the 3 districts. Making these appointments obviously allows us to continue to progress the stand-up of Central District's water, and the board appointment process is a part of the key element of what we need the shareholder committee to begin to progress. So basically from today, if we are able to approve this in terms of the delegation and also the nominations, then we are able to continue to progress our project timelines as in accordance with our water services delivery plan and what we have already presented and had approved by the Department of Internal Affairs. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks, Julie. A number of questions. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Julie and Mike. In 3.3, it says that the committee isn't dissolved at the end of the triennium, as most council committees would. So what actually happens at the end of a triennium?
Chris, do you want me to take that?
If I need.
So the intent of that would be that the delegates will continue in that until such time as the shareholder committee determine it is time to reconsider nominations. So in the shareholders agreement there is provision for the timing around when that can occur. So what we're suggesting is rather than having it the turnover in line with the triennium, that they could continue on in that position until such time as the shareholder committee determined otherwise.
So we could end up in a position where our shareholder representatives aren't actually elected members at all.
I'll jump in, shall I? I guess that's certainly a possibility, and I think there's, as per the shareholders' agreement, there's ability to appoint and remove members. So I think what would sort of happen in reality is, when you at the start of a new triennium, you would go through the process of appointing members as you do with other committees and what have you. And if you did end up with a situation where you had a person that was effectively on the committee that wasn't an elected member, and you would be technically in, I suppose, a technical non-compliance with the shareholders agreement. Council could have the ability to quickly remedy that if it wished.
Okay.
I'll
What?
just, I'll just get Hannah to add some comment as well. Yep.
Sorry to jump in, Chris. I think the intention of how this is written is that under the LGA, your committee continues to exist, but not your membership. So usually, as practice, we dissolve committees at the end of a term. What this is saying is that this committee must continue to exist because its role will continue to exist regardless, but then following an election, you would then appoint your membership.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Thank you. Now, regarding the independent chairperson, how long is that person appointed for?
I can take this one too. So the independent chair is appointed by the committee. The recommendation that's going up to the committee will be for that initial appointment to go from Friday through to the end of June 2027, and then the reappointment would happen following that. And then the decision can be of the committee about what's the appropriate period for that next reappointment.
Okay, so when June 2027 comes up, it's down to the shareholder committee at that point to decide whether or not to extend the contract of the independent chairperson or seek expressions of interest from other people. Is that fair?
Great.
Okay, and then when a contract is offered to the new or continuing chairperson, is that a fixed term contract or how does it work at that point?
That would be up to the committee to determine. So there's not a lot of specificity about terms or the terms of the appointment. So it would be up to the committee to determine what made sense at that time.
Okay. If at any point the shareholder committee was unhappy with the performance of the independent chair, what's the process for dealing with that?
So the committee has the rights of appointment and removal.
And removal.
So So again, what it would be is that person will have a letter of engagement, and it would cover off what would happen in the event that they were removed from the position by the committee.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few questions from me. The first one won't be a surprise to Chris. You know my feelings on delegations to the Shareholders Committee. I just want to be really clear. Today's not the day that we're deciding exactly how our delegates on that committee behave. There'll be something that will come to us later, or because I don't want to get 6 months down the track and then have somebody go, no, Councillor, you've missed your chance to influence that. So will it be up to us down the track to determine whether or not, for example, a statement of expectation needs to come back and be discussed at a council table before our delegates vote, or when would that mechanism be decided?
Yeah. So today, in recommendation 3, you are delegating to the shareholder committee. So that is, and as you'll read in that recommendation, the roles and responsibilities from the shareholders agreement. So that's the first thing. And then in recommendation 4, you're appointing your delegates and giving them the power to make decisions in accordance with the committee's terms of reference. So I guess that today is that you're telling people you've got the powers to go and operate as per that committee. What you can do is, and I guess potentially at any time, through a committee meeting or whatever mechanism you choose, is to provide guidance and direction to those appointees. So that's not happening today, but it's really up to council to make a decision about whether there is any further guidance or direction that you want to make to your appointees. And as I said, you could make that through council.
Great. So just to be clear, if I or any other council wanted to move notice of motion about how those delegates are able to, whether or not a statement of expectation needs to come back to council, that can be done through a notice of motion at a later date. We're not signing away our ability to do that today.
That's correct, but perhaps Heather might be able to provide more around the actual process. But my understanding is today we're setting them up and we're giving people powers, but it doesn't negate the ability of council to provide further direction to those appointees.
Through the chair, the delegation that you're giving through this recommendation today is to act as Palmerston North City Council's representative on the shareholders committee. That's the extent of the delegation. The how you want them to act could be at a later date.
Great. And so just to clarify with that, so to be clear, the expectation is our delegates to that committee are there to act in the interests of the collective view of the City Council, not their interests as an individual elected member. Is that correct?
So the delegation today is specifically around in accordance with the committee's terms of reference. So what you're delegating them to do is to, act within the terms of reference. But I guess it's implied that it's they are council's appointees to the committee. So they are there to represent council.
Okay. So how do you envisage? It's not that I don't trust the mayor or can't spell, but how do you envisage our delegates to that committee understanding or getting a picture of the view of council? Is it going to be a 6-monthly workshop? Is it going to be a standing item on a council paper? Is it going to be they just catch up with people for cups of coffee? What is the mechanism for them understanding the collective view of council?
I think that's up to council to determine, is it?
Okay, so that's what we can do at a later date. All right. In that case, I'll leave it there.
Yes.
Yeah, councillor, it's a good question, and I suppose it's something like, it needs to be, I think there needs to be some clear direction. Otherwise it could, excuse the pun, but it could be muddy the waters a little bit. Yeah, good question. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. Page 250 under clause 11.2 outlines what's included in the agenda for the first meeting. I'm just wondering if agendas and minutes of those meetings will be publicly available.
Yes, so they are. It's a joint committee set up under the Local Government Act. It operates under Lagoima, so we have to follow the same rules as any other committee or council. So yes, that's correct. So the agenda, the standard agendas will be distributed as in the same way as we would normally do for anything else, and then ultimately minutes will come back as well.
Lovely, thank you.
And look, I believe it's already on the website. Am I right in saying that, the papers?
The agenda for Friday is already published on the PNCC website.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mike and Julie. There's a number of recommendations there. I'll ask the Deputy Mayor to move those. But if we could just get those on screen, please. All right, well, I'll start. That we have recommendations to council that, subject to the confirmation, Horowhenua and Rangitikei District Councils, the Palmerston North City initiate the Shareholders Committee for Central District's water under the Local Government Act, and having regard to the terms of reference set out in the agreement approved by council at the 10th of December 2025 meeting, and determines in the terms of clause 37 of Schedule 7 of the Local Government Act that the committee will not be discharged following the triennial local elections. 2, that council agree in terms of the Local Government Act that the shareholder committee will not be discharged. That sounds like the same thing. Is that a double up? Yeah. Okay, we're not doing 2. I'm glad I read them out. 3, that council notes the roles and responsibility of the shareholder committee as stated in Schedule 3 of the shareholders agreement and in clauses 30A and Schedule 7 Local Government Act, delegate to the shareholders committee and the members of that committee those roles and responsibilities. 4, that the council adopt with a delegated power to make decisions in accordance with the committee's terms of reference, the following persons as the council's represented on the shareholders committee for Central District's Water: Mayor Grant Smith, Councillor Katie Isabellin, and Councillor Brent Barnett as an alternate. That subject to the confirmation of the Horowhenua and Rangitikei District Council, confirm the appointment of the following persons nominated by Tapawai Aho as mana whenua representatives on the shareholders committee for Central District Water, with the delegated power to make decisions in accordance with the committee's terms of reference, and Kura Haupai is Confederation as Danielle Harris, and our alternate there is Di Rump. Tainui Confederation's Hayden Turara, and the alternate is Tai Tibble, and iwi for the Greater Rangitikei is Marge Hene, and Suze Heppy is the alternate. Number 6, that subject to the confirmation of the Horowhenua and Rangitikei District Councils, council delegate to the council's representatives on the shareholders committee for Central District's Water the power to confirm any replacement iwi members nominated in writing by Ngā Tapawai Aho. So, moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Dennison. I'll open it up for any comments. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Am I standing? Sorry, I forgot I'm standing. Just wanted to say this is really significant, and when I looked at the names, I knew who was going forward from us, but also when I looked at the other names, I was really heartened to see the calibre of the people who will be on this very significant and important committee. So, ngā mihi nui, kia ora, was more than a committee, isn't it? Kia ora.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, team. Just very quickly, as we've discussed this before, to let you know it's my intention to meet with Chris and the team and others and request a process going forward for how our council is going to work with our delegates to the shareholders committee. Because I think if it's left to simply being I know what my colleagues are thinking, I think that potentially puts us on a slippery slope where that might be the case for the first 6 months or 12 months, but if it's 3 years down the track or 6 years down the track or 12 years down the track, I'm not saying it has to be arduous, I'm not saying it has to be difficult, but I think there needs to be a formalised process for how that works. My preference would be the regular paper comes to council, perhaps once every 6 months or something along those lines, but I'm very open to the discussion with colleagues as to what that best looks like. Perhaps it's best left to a workshop where we discuss it as a group or another mechanism, but just to flag with you now, I'm not going to let that go. I think we need some formal process, and I'll work with the team on how we do that.
Yeah, agree. I think that's a good process. Something needs to be in writing that we can refer to. Now, it might not be 100% total agreement, but there does need to be something in writing, otherwise as I say, it does create some uncertainty. And look, a regular report back to, it'll be our major CCO, so a regular report back to this council, and indeed our partners as well, something that we'll bring up with our colleagues in our very first meeting, actually. All right, okay, we'll vote, please. That's passed 12 votes for, 2 against, and 1 abstention. Sorry, Councillor, I didn't see your light on. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, we will now go to number 11, the annual budget. So this is number 11, page 125 of your papers. This is the annual budget plan for 26-27, the adoption of the consultation document and supporting information. So I will ask Scott Manser and Cam to come up to the table, and Steve Patterson as well. Thank you. Gentlemen.
Good afternoon, thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors. So pleased to be bringing back to you the budget material and the consultation document for your consideration today. Just a brief introduction. So what you have in front of you effectively is a reflection of the decisions that you made in your previous meeting in December. But it's just a couple of points I want to highlight and cover off for you. So one of those is the councillors, you made a recommendation or resolution to consult on footpath, increase in footpath renewals to match depreciation. When we've gone away and looked at the depreciation figures, we've had to recalculate those because as you'll be aware, in the past, depreciation hasn't had any rating impact at all, so we have typically updated that more towards the end of the process, given that it is being used for your decision making around level of renewals. We will alter our process in relation to that. However, what we have also done in the process is to actually look at our condition of our footpaths, and in terms of our asset management plans, where we are in terms of the renewal cycle for footpaths. That highlights to us that there is a significant backlog in terms of work that is required to bring the footpaths up to the standard that you've set as part of your service performance measures. You'll note that that's been regularly an area that hasn't been at the appropriate level of condition, and so we have formed some options for the community based around the actual impact to the asset for the level of investment that was raised. So I think what the consultation material does show is that it has an impact on addressing that backlog to improve condition over time, should there be increased investment in footpaths of varying levels of degree. We've also outlined what that would mean in terms of a average household, in terms of rating impact for that. Secondly, you made some decisions around other resolutions on 10th December. You'll recall at the time that one of the things we were going to go back and confirm was our treatment of how we were treating the program relating to setting up Central District's water and ensuring that we were consistent with the other councils and how they were also treating those costs. In confirming that with our partnering councils, both of them are taking the approach of effectively not funding for any of the debt servicing costs in the intermediary time, as effectively borrowing for the interest and passing that on to Central District's water at time of establishment, i.e. taking the approach of the ratepayers of the councils aren't going to bear any cost in the establishment that will pass over to the new entity on 1 July 27. So we've decided, we've done the same in this material in front of you to ensure we've got a consistent approach. So that brought the rates increase that would have been 5.1% back to a 4.9% increase that's in front of you today. Finally, depending on your decisions of today, the material is there for your consideration for adopting to go out into consultation. However, acknowledging you may have some views around the consultation document that you wish to express, and acknowledging you made some decisions this morning which on the face of it, whilst the financial impacts of those are relatively minor in terms of the decisions that you did make, it does have a rounding implication around where the rates would sit. So at the moment they sit at 4.9. You made some decisions this morning. That would bring it to 5% rounded. We have the some options that you could consider around whether we update all of the supporting material at the current time, but you will acknowledge that as we go through to the final process of the budget in May, there will be some other minor adjustments that either come through submissions or through our reassessment of our opening balances for debt and things as we know our capital program progression of the current year. So it's all probably within that realm of those adjustments that you would ordinarily consider at that time. So that is something for you to consider at this point. Happy to take questions.
Cam, how do I phrase this? I thought rounding was 100,000 and we made a 20,000 or 30,000 decision a moment ago, earlier in the day. Would a simpler option to keep the information as is, that we, if we were to move this, that we just ask the CE to find that $20,000 or $30,000 saving from within existing budgets of 220 million or whatever?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the changes that you've made so far today is more than the 20,000 that you're referring to. The reduction in the environmental health fees, I believe that was
27?
37,
Okay.
and also the swimming pool caregiver fee that you didn't choose to adopt has also an impact as well. So I think.
So can you tell me what that is?
I don't have that top of mind.
18. Okay. It doesn't add up to 100. Well,
at the moment, where your current rates are sitting, I think you're right on the cusp at 4.9. It's like you only got a few thousand before you're into the 5.0.
Yeah. Now. Okay. Our maths are different, but that's fine. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. Yeah, that maths makes sense. It adds up quickly. Sorry. So my questions are starting on page 139 at the consultation document. At the bottom right-hand corner there, it says that the proposed spending for the capital expenditure is 53 million, which is doesn't seem correct to me, because on page 130 it says that it's 98.6 for our capital program. Just wondering, is that just an error, or am I not understanding something correctly?
Sorry, can you just repeat those
So
page
page
numbers?
139 or page 8 of the consultation document, at the bottom right-hand corner, under capital expenditure, it says the proposed spending is 53 million, but on page 130 in table 3, total capital expenditure is 98.6 million.
Both are correct. The 53 relates to the capital new program, whereas the 98 is new growth and renewals.
So on that same table, in table 3, because I was trying to find where that aligned, it says 49.9 for capital new. And also in the wording, it says on new projects and growth, so I would have expected that to be the 49.9 and the 13.3 added together, which is 60 something.
We can make that change.
Thank you. Now, in terms of the next page on that document, 140 or page 10 of the consultation document, I guess the first question is, if we're wanting to see some changes, what's our process? Are we just giving you generalised feedback here today, or are we going to send that through to someone, or how would you like that feedback?
I was looking at moving this if we could. If that's the will of the meeting. Yeah.
Because this is the first time we've seen this.
Well, like all papers, it's how you've seen it.
Okay, so this page that I'm looking at talks about the main changes as compared to the long-term plan, which has significantly changed. We're talking about $60 million of stuff that was in the long-term plan that we're not doing. So where we've got to in that 3 years is quite different. The following page, page 141, has got a breakdown of the budgeted capital expenditure, for example. For example, 24% of that is, the largest portion of that is recreation, play, arts and heritage. If I was, as a community person, was interested in understanding further about what the big projects are that are in our budget for the next year, where would I be able to find, would I have to read through the whole supporting information to find that out? Historically, in our documents, summary documents like this, we have had sort of highlights of perhaps the big projects, whereas I don't see that in this document, and I'm just wondering if we want to kind of highlight the significant things to our community, is there a way that we can do that? I guess what I'm saying is that all of those changes, which are some of them are quite small on page 140, there's 2 pages of stuff that's just talking about how our annual budget compares to the long-term plan, but in my mind that's probably less relevant than what are the projects that we're planning on implementing in this current year. Sorry, this is the feedback. I'm just trying to understand what our mechanism, if we do want to see some changes.
Yeah, in terms of changes, certainly we're interested to hear things that might be small that we can adjust through the Chief Executive's delegation if necessary, if they're just typos or things like that. If they're more substantial, then obviously we'd need to cover them off through some resolution here today. In terms of that question you asked about what is it that's big that's being proposed for the current year's budget, when I looked at what we had, the reality is there's only a couple of projects that are over $1 million odd, and that's the 2 that we list, which were the arena and there was one other. Yeah, seismic strengthening of these.
Oh, at the bottom there. Yep. Okay, I'll move on. The page 130. The comparison between the December draft of the annual budget, the blue column, in terms of the total capital expenditure of 97.1, and then that's moved for the February draft at to 98.6. Is the December draft before we made the changes, so that I'm just trying to understand that 1.5 million extra that's for the arena roof or other things that were added in?
Yes, the December draft is before any recommendations
Okay.
that council made in that meeting.
Okay, just in terms of the debt, funding from additional debt being 59.8 million at the bottom of that table in the green column, do we have an understand that? I think that's about adding about 20% to the current debt. Do we have any understanding of how much of a rates increase that would require to next year's budget if we do draw down all of that 59.8 million debt?
If you just give us a minute or two, we'll get our magic calculators out and give you that answer.
Okay, I'm happy to wait and go to...
I'll come back to you. I'll go to Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions. The first would be around table 2 on page 129. The third line in that table 2 says rolling average renewal increase. But then when we get across the actual numbers, it looks like the increase is a decrease. Just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that is correct. And if you recall back to the December meeting, in years 2 and 3 from where we are today, there was some significant uptick in the water renewal programs in particular. And given that they will be delivered by a different organisation, we decided to take basically what this budget is considering and taking a flat line across the 3 years. That's also reasonably matched to the depreciation for waters, and then we reduced the years 2 and 3 in particular in terms of renewals for the fleet replacement program and brought them down.
Great, thank you. So if we set aside the water stuff, would we still be in a renewals decrease space rather than increase?
Whilst I don't have the detail in front of me exactly, I don't believe that would be the case. I believe that the predominant changes in years 2 and 3 of the rolling renewal calculation was waters.
Great, thank you. Just a couple questions around the consultation document itself. Page 5 of that document, which I'm just working to get to myself. On the top left of page 5 of the draft, it says key considerations for this year's budget. And the first little pointer that says keeping city services running at current levels. It then goes on to say as much as possible. And I'm just wondering about that as much as possible. What kind of room are we creating for ourselves there?
Through Mr. Mayor, I don't particularly have a view on that. My view is that we're intending to operate our city services at current levels, not necessarily as far as possible, whatever the terminology is there, but it's at current levels.
So, as a proposal, is it necessary that that proposal includes as much as possible?
I don't believe so, no.
Great, thanks. That's helpful to hear. Sorry, there was one other question. Ah, yes. Imagery. Beautiful picture of a number of road cones. Just wanted to ask if that was an intentional image choice.
I'm looking at Liv for some help here, but I think it's more about the footpath rather than the road cones.
Are there some image options that might more clearly help us focus on put powers and renewals thereof.
Through the chair, noted, councillor, will take care of that.
Thank you. That's my questions, Mr. Mayor.
I've just had a decent look at it and I know where you're going. Yeah. Footpath closed, please use the other side. Yeah. Okay. Now, did Cam and Scott, did we get an answer for councillor Naylor on?
Yes, we did. So for 60 million of debt, for the half year of interest, that adds 1.2 million to the rates requirement.
Okay. All right, councillor, you're right? You're right? You got more questions? Okay.
I just noticed at the top of page 141 that the new and growth related capital expenditures got 63.2 million there, so that's probably the correct one. So I think that other one must just be an error. But so the 1.2 million for 60 million of debt, so is that in the 26-27 year? So my question was, what impact would it have in the following year, which would be the first year of the LTP? My reason for asking is later on in the paper, in the rates cap paper, it talks about in 24-25 we had about 6.5% that was due to increased debt. So I'm just wanting to have a bit of an understanding of outer years, not just the current years, in terms of the impact.
Yeah, that's a really good question. The simple answer is double that figure, so it would be 2.4 million of interest in year one of the new LTP, assuming the interest rate assumption is the same. So if the interest rate assumption changes, then that figure will change, plus a tiny amount of debt repayment does start to come in there as well. In regards to the future years of rates, that's something we're actively working on, particularly in relation to waters as well. Unfortunately, I've had a bit of illness in the team this week and we just couldn't quite finish the modelling for that to be able to answer that question.
No, that's fine. So when you say tiny amount of debt repayment, because we've had that a 35% increase in this debt repayment for this year. So when you say tiny amount, are we looking at?
Yeah, tiny amount in relation to the new 60 million. Because at the early part of drawing down debt, the interest cost is higher and the principal payment gets bigger the further you go. So in relation to the 60 million of new debt, it would only be a smaller amount early.
So that 2.4 million additional, is that about a 2% increase?
Yeah, slightly less, but roughly. It's slightly under 2%.
So just follow-on question. So when we look at the breakdown on the table of what's driving our increase, it's almost half that's debt. Which one is it? So table 2 on page 129, the interest costs on debt and the debt repayment is 2.4% of the 4.9, which is just under half of it. So why, if we're drawing down an extra 60 million, would the increase only be 2%? I'm trying to understand. That seems a bit of an inconsistent picture with what we're seeing here, especially when the interest has gone down.
Yeah, so through you, Councillor, so the debt repayment portion is higher because we've reduced the interest rate assumption, so you're actually paying more principal as a result. So that's how that's flipped around. And you see more debt repayment as a result of that.
So the overall debt servicing costs, can we expect that they will go up if we draw down more debt? So if we're drawing down 60 million of debt, would we expect it to be, because we haven't drawn down 60 million of debt in the last year, have we? So I'm just trying to understand why the rates increase in the future would be less than what it is now when we're proposing to draw down 59-point-something million of additional debt.
Yeah, there's two things at play in terms of what the overall picture is for interest and debt repayment is, because the council's got a program of debt repayment as well. So in the course of a given year, we're saying we're needing to add 60 odd million of additional debt, but in addition to that, we're actually repaying some debt off. So the net increase in the debt level is not 60 million. It's something less than that. So if you're comparing the overall interest figure,
Okay.
It's on a slightly lower figure than that.
Okay, thank you. That's all from me.
And Steve, just on that topic, because it is interesting, because you just think of debt just amounting and amounting and amounting, but actually the entire time we are paying off debt, off assets, aren't we? And over the life, and is it a consistent amount, or is it just on the actual asset that we're paying off?
So in each budget that we've got, we make provision where it's being funded from debt to repay it over the life of the asset, or 30 years, whichever's the shorter of the two. And in that, we're using a table mortgage type arrangement. So progressively over that life, it's paying, we're budgeting to pay off that particular asset, if you like. So what we do in terms of the actual portfolio of debt stands separate from that, because we're raising money as a sort of a corporate pool of money. But in terms of the budgeting process, that's taken into account the particular assets, the particular programs that are being funded from debt.
Right.
And repayment over there.
And in any one given year, what sort of, how many millions are we talking about, or is it all quite different?
The proposal for next financial year is 12.3 million being repaid.
Repaid, plus interest, yeah. Okay. Okay, that's good to know. All right. Okay, colleagues, that's our questions done. So we have recommendations there on the annual budget plan. I'm of the view that I'm going to recommend that we, to council, that 1 and 2 be adopted. So the council adopt the supporting information for the proposed 26-27 annual budget attachment 1. I'll be asking the CE if, and I've got a nod from him that it goes out as it is, obviously with any minor amendments, and that 4.9 is sort of found within the organisation as the material, and so attachment 1 is the material relied upon to prepare the consultation document. So that means we don't have to go through the entire document and keep changing things. And 2, that council adopt the consultation document for the proposed 26-27 annual budget attachment 2. And look for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Dennison.
Your Worship, can I just make one very brief comment, just because it is quite important in terms of the figures being correct. A colleague of mine helpfully outlined to me yesterday that in the supporting information on pages 110 and 111, the tables of the rates that are here, in one of them it says that it's a rate cents in the dollar of the capital value, when it should say the land value on the 110, and the other table should say the reverse. So they've been reversed in their heading. So I just want to point that out. On page 110 and 111, there'll be things we do.
Oh, the extra
It's a
attachment.
minor change, but I just, because they're important, I suppose, I thought I'd just point that out.
Okay, well, that's noted. It's the supporting. I was just looking for where he was going with that. But yeah, okay, it's the supporting information. Okay, thank you. So, colleagues, like we do with all of our consultation documents, if there's something you see, a spelling error, anything that needs, in terms of minor amendments, that gets can be changed via the delegation of the CE. But I think we've before Christmas we gave this a good hearing, and I think we've done a good job to get ourselves into the space of 4.9 with all the different challenges that we face at the present time in local government, and I think now's the time for our community to have their say and come to us. So look for your support to get this out and about, and let our comms people do and going to the public. So I'll open it up for any comments. Councillor Naylor.
Before I make comment, Mr Mayor, I just want to clarify, you in your introductory comments, you said something about leaving it at 4.9 and asking the Chief Executive to find that saving.
Yeah.
Does that need to be included in the resolution? Because my understanding is that I tested that earlier with an amendment that failed, and for that very reason, as I did understand that some of those additional costs would push it over and that failed. So
When did you do that?
in the item 10.
Oh, okay.
But-
Yeah, we can document it. I mean, I'll just get some of it.
Through the chair, just checking with my colleagues earlier on as well. The modifications that were made this morning were minor in nature. If we think that we needed to make any other necessary adjustments to inform the public before we went out on consultation, we could bring back a very short paper on the 25th prior to going out to consultation. But I think that I would need to have a chat with the team first thing tomorrow morning just to make sure that we're okay and living within the 4.9 has been presented in the paperwork today.
Okay, I'd prefer a decision now. Sorry. Cam?
Through me, acknowledging, you have the 6-month report in front of you today, and where we're currently tracking with our debt, which is below the budget at the moment. I think we could probably adjust the debt repayment slightly, because when we get to May, we'll probably be considering carry forwards in the opening debt balance anyway at that point. So we could do that now rather than changing all the material again.
Okay. I'll take your advice on that. Just makes sense to try and continue to go out as we are. My math said we're 70-odd thousand on top of what we were before.
85.
And if we can find some, sorry, I didn't need a comment there, thank you. And that we can find that with what we do within council. Okay, Councillor Johnson.
Oh, Mr Mayor, I haven't commented yet. Can I comment now?
You're asking a question.
I said, yeah, I did want to clarify that before.
Okay, I'll come back to you.
Yep.
Councillor Johnson.
It was just really a point of order in that we're getting into a conversation situation here instead of sticking to our standing orders. So I just wanted to, I'm not quite sure which point of order it is, but just I'll raise the point of order in terms of procedures.
Thank you, and that's probably at me as well. So, point noted. Okay, Councillor, do you want to flick your... Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. Just returning to the paper, I do want to just say that I think officers have done a good job in that summary document. I think whilst I would have preferred to see a bit more emphasis in outlining what we are doing, and there's a lot of detail around what has changed from the LTP, I'm generally comfortable that the information in there is still useful once those corrections have been made. In terms of the position that we've got, aside from the 85,000 that has been added in our decision making today, 4.9% may not seem significantly high perhaps to some of you, but my view is that it is higher than many in our community expect, and some of what has driven that has been added programs that in my view are very optional. If we're really truly going to listen to our community, I think that we would find that, anyway, the opportunity for us to listen to our community will be coming up through that consultation process, and I'm looking forward to that. Really what I wanted to briefly say is that the area that I'm really still not comfortable with is the amount of debt we're adding. So even the additional debt, then less what we're going to repay, the 12.3 million, is still increasing the debt by 47.5 million. And what we have seen is sometimes some shorter-term thinking where we just look at the rates increase for this year, which we could say 4.9 isn't too bad. But then, as I mentioned earlier, later on in our papers, we can see outlined not so long ago, 24-25, where 6.5% of the rates increase was due to the additional debt. So I just really want to be mindful in terms of the size the Capital New in particular program that we take on, that is such that not only that the community can afford it now, but that they can afford it in subsequent years. And I think we need to get some longer term thinking and some longer term understanding in terms of the impact of that. So I won't be supporting it today, not because I don't think the information is useful, but where we've landed is still not at a point where I think that reflects what I've heard from the community to date.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, I will be supporting it, and I think actually when you look at what was predicted in the long-term plan, that we've responded quite well to changing environment, I suppose, since that long-term plan was established, both through making some adjustments in the chamber and also staff doing their best to keep rates increases down. So I actually think we've landed in a good space. And I do think that 4.9 is reasonable. I understand that some people will think that any increase is too much, but at the same time, I don't think we should fall into the trap of not funding infrastructure improvements and requests from community for support in different areas. It's always going to be a balance, and if you go out with too low a rates increase consistently, what you end up with is an infrastructure deficit. And you only have to look around the country to see that that's the case. So I would caution never being satisfied that the rates are low enough. Rates can be too low. And when rates are too low, that's not a benefit to the community. And also I think it's good that we, this is our starter, we go out for consultation, we hear from people. But I think we all need to be careful talking about what the community wants, because there isn't one united view of what the community wants. Different segments of the community want different things. And I'm sure we'll hear that through the consultation. But I would just counsel colleagues, let's be careful when we're saying, well, the community wants this, or what I've heard from the community is that, because there's not one community view. There's a variety of community views as regards what we should be doing, how much people want to pay in their rates, etc. So let's, by all means, go out for consultation, but let's look at all of the feedback that comes back, and let's use language that reflects the multiplicity of views that there are in the community about what we should be doing. It's not just one view. So thank you to staff for getting us to this point, and colleagues, and I'm happy with where we've landed.
Councillor Harpiter.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say thank you to the Chief Executive and to the all the staff for getting this to 4.9 today. I think it is a very good consultation document, and I think it's really worth going out, and I will fully support it. I think fully support what Councillor Johnson has just said. I think that this is worthy to go out to consultation. It's a good document, and I think this is what we want to get the views on of our community, of the whole community. So that's what we need to consult on. This is what I call a consultation document. So this is what we should be consulting with, a good, decent consultation document. And I just think that 4.9 is exactly what we should be consulting on. And it's got everything in here, so I'm very happy to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Likewise, I will be supporting this document, imperfect though it is. Obviously, some of us have a view that there's a few too many things in there, but I would point out there's some real things missing. Road safety, 0. Food scraps, our #1 opportunity in resource recovery, that's all been pushed out, missing. Active transport, gone. So let's be really honest that actually there's also a lot missing.
Councillor Wood.
Oh, Mr Mayor, I can't just stand there and not comment on what Councillor Barrett's just said. Road safety is not zero. Every time we renew a road, every time we invest in a road, we are investing in road safety. Every time we redo the line marking on a road, we're investing in road safety. Every time we do what we're doing out in Kelvin Grove at the Three Dips at Stony Creek, it's investing in road safety. So to stand here and make a carte blanche comment that we're not spending a dime on improving the safety of our roads, I truly can't just stand here and listen to it. I was hoping the council would speak for longer so I could find the page in the budget to direct our attention to, but I didn't quite have enough time to do that. This budget is doing a lot. I mean, I think to a degree we've got lucky from the LTP where we started because we haven't been able to deliver all the projects we'd wanted to, and that's led to deferral by undeliverability and reducing our capital cost. We've also got lucky that the interest rates have gone down and long may that last, because we could be sitting here in 2 years' time with the interest rates going through the roof with a significantly increased debt portfolio discussing 10-12% rate increases again. So I think we can't pat ourselves on the back too much as of yet. We need to get through a consultation process. I will vote for it, even though I'm not happy with everything. And I would caution colleagues that, yes, we should never be of the view that we should never be satisfied that rates are low enough, but nor should we be of the view that it's never a problem how high rates are. So I think there is a balancing act to be done, and that's where each of us come from our individual perspective. And that's each of us has a band of what they believe is acceptable. So I'm not of the view that rates could never be low enough. If they were 3%, I'd be quite comfortable. But there's a range of what each councillor here has comfort levels on. So I would caution against either extreme as we go through the consultation process.
All right. Thank you, councillors. Look, just as we wind up, to our comms team, I mean, obviously, to everybody else, well done to the comms, to Liv and the team. If we could really put that out widely, talk about what we are doing in the community. Obviously, those arena and the earthquake strengthening projects are probably two of the newer ones. But thanks for the work to date. I'm sure it'll go a bit wider. Just around the debt, I think there's good debt and bad debt, and it sometimes gets talked about in this chamber as it's all bad. But actually you raise debt for intergenerational assets. Have a think about when the dams were built. I mean, the view around the table would have been jeepers. We're bringing on a lot of debt, but the benefit that's brought for us and for other generations of Palmerstonians has been tremendous. We're doing the same in some ways for some of the assets we're building now, or we're looking after. So our debt ratio or debt book is mid-range compared to most New Zealand cities. So I just would have to say we just need to keep that in context and in balance. Councillor Wood's right, there is a balanced view. There is a balanced conversation here and debate, and with all of you, you all come from different directions on that, and that's the beauty of the city as well. So I was hoping we might get a unanimous on this, that we can get this out and let the community come to us and say what they think. Again, I think 4.9 is a good starting point. There's been a lot of hard work gone in the background to even get to that. I've been talking to a lot of my colleagues around the Motu, and that not many are close to us. So that is a credit in itself. But there's still perhaps some work to be done. So the two recommendations there, obviously, that we adopt the supporting information and the annual budget as material to prepare the consultation document, and that the consultation document for the proposed 26-27 annual budget attachment to be sent out. So we'll vote, please. And that's passed, 13 votes for and 2 against. Yeah, we'll go to number 12 now, please. Quarterly performance, page 161. I invite Scott Glenn has got, Glenn Bunny and Stephanie Velvin, please. Page 161, papers.
Very good afternoon to you all. New look quarter report team, although Steph has just actually had to go home unwell, so she won't be joining us today. Just want to run you through a couple of quick things before I pass on to Glenn to talk about our capital program. So at the 31st of December, our net operating position was 1.3 million favourable, and within that our revenue was favourable by 2 million and our expenditure was unfavourable by 0.7 million. As was picked up in the last quarter report, we do still have the favourable insurance position in other expenditure, and you'll also remember that we had a budget allocation error relating to the software licences that's been budgeted against professional services as well. So you can't see that favourable result coming through because the software overspend is hiding the favourable insurance position. Equally on the professional services line, you're not seeing the favourable variance as we've got two things going on. The first is the planning services team using consultants to cover vacancies in the team, and the second is the plan change G appeal costs. So both are actually hiding those variances, unfortunately. The trends are continuing this financial year that have been occurred in the first 6 months. So, and the management team is continually keeping an eye on our end of year position. Speaking of the end of year position, the same as last financial year, we've got the forecast in this quarter report. And it's very important to note that this is a point in time. Things change fairly quickly in this place. So that's actually just been updated by all of my colleagues around the organisation over the last couple of days, and the management team will see that next week. So at the point of this report, we're forecasting a 1.5 million favourable variance at year end, and that is predominantly from additional revenue that we've received there. You'll see another update in the third quarter report. Finally, before I pass over, there's two additional resolutions in front of you. The first is to deal with the planning services and the professional services being used there. So that's an increase to the professional services budget and an increase to revenue as those are directly recovered from applicants for planning consents. And the second one is a preemptive resolution. So this one will only get done if funding is confirmed, but we want to look at installing solar panels on some civil defence centres. And if the grant is confirmed from ECA, we'll add some capital revenue and increase the budgets to be able to spend that money as well. Glenn.
Thanks, Scott. Glenn Bunny, Manager Property, and at the moment Project Management Office as well. Capital as of December, the delivery program was behind, as noted in the report. There are a couple key large projects that are contributing to that. The further deliberation around Arena 5 and options for that project, growth programs where we're reliant on timing that with private development, etc. Grant funding around Te Motua Potua, emergency reinstatements without a need for that work, etc. So whilst the program reports has been behind as of December, we're aware of those contributing elements. There are other always continuing challenges with a large program like that, vacancies, competing priorities, weather, etc. It's also natural that in a capital delivery year, the front end of the year with some programs and projects is spent more with planning and confirmation of design, and we'll see the actual physical works scale up in the second part of the year. So we do anticipate seeing the program catch up to a reasonable extent in the second half of this financial year. But important to note that with some of those larger projects and some things being dependent on grant funding, etc., we probably will not get to the full forecasted capital spend for this financial year, but officers will certainly challenge ourselves to accelerate everything that's within our control. Happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I only have one question. It relates to page 183 on our housing measure 3 around our resource consent applications. So this report shows we've failed for another quarter to get anywhere near our target for achieving consents. You're asking us to pump another $1.3 million into professional services. We've reduced the consent target, we've implemented a new digital system, we've offered capacity building budgets. I've been here for 3 years now, or 4 years now, and this measure continues to fail year on year, quarter on quarter. So my question is perhaps to the Chief Executive, at what point is that not good enough? At what point do we do something about it? Or do we just continue to spend and hope and plan and see nothing get better?
Councillor, some of the numbers you're talking about don't make sense. Our consent book for commercial and industrial has actually increased. And some of those consents are big, expensive, and take a lot of time.
I was referring to page 183, Mr Mayor, measure 3. It's at least 80% of resource consent applications processed within the statutory timeframe. We're currently sitting at 47%, and I don't think I've ever seen it green in 4 years where we've achieved that target. And we've dropped it from 90 to 80.
Maybe we get officers down or the CE to speak to that.
Yeah, we'll invite Jeff Baker down, our Manager of Planning Services.
Kia ora koutou, ko Jeff Baker ho. I'm the Planning Services Manager. Through the chair, I hear the sentiment of the statement sort of question. I think the reality is, certainly in the time I've been here, we've faced multiple vacancies in the team. It's difficult to recruit. We still have vacancies across the board in all levels. The staff that are there are doing their best to get on top of consents. And in the circumstances, even the roughly half that we do get through on time is a significant effort. A previous staff member mentioned something around what we can do in terms of our control. One aspect of processing resource consents is there's a number of things that are not in my direct control that affect outcomes. So if there's delays by specialists, by contractors, by anyone involved in our process, ultimately that affects our scorebook, and that's reflected in those stats. I have seen periods where we've been able to achieve in the order of 70%. That was in a scenario where we had more experienced team members on board. We had a little bit of luck in terms of a number of smaller applications, but at the current time we've got a number of complex applications, and it's part of the deal. And it is very difficult to process them on time. In fact, some of that is it's acknowledged at a national level, hence the future changes to the RMA.
So what do you need from us to fix it? Do you need more budget for staff? Do you need, should we be offering scholarships to Massey graduates and then bonding them to the council for 3 years? What do you, if we'd started that 3 years ago, we'd have a problem fixed by now. So what do you need from us to fix the problem? Because I feel like we're spinning our wheels here and not getting anywhere.
Through the chair, I plead the fifth and I'll go to Wade on this one.
Thank you, Jeff. I just saw the look on your face. Maybe this is a me thing. Thank you, Councillor. Look, it has been an issue that I've been having a conversation with the GM about for quite some time. We are looking at some system improvements in this space. We are looking at recruitment, trying to get some bums on seats to help process applications. You'll recall before Christmas you signed off another a bit of paperwork that looked at a digital solution to the planning space and a few other things along those lines as well. It isn't through wanton effort on behalf of my staff in terms of looking to deliver. Is 47% okay? It's not. I recall also that you as elected members reduced that down to 80%. It used to be 85 or higher, I think it was previously. So you previously acknowledged that. Perhaps I'll take your offer on notice and perhaps look to bring something back that might have a look at what else that we need from you to help support that team in improving.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. Just one question around the dashboard on page 165. The capital growth in you are at obviously 20 and 25% at the 6-month mark. So I'm just wondering, given that, do we have any sort of forecast estimate for carry forwards at this point?
That's something we'll work on as part of the annual budget process. So I think the CFO just alluded to it with his answer around the debt repayment program. Officers will continue to bring that information together through late March and April, ready for the May deliberations. We'll bring the latest position and the latest update. As Glenn referred to, the summer weather usually brings about better construction weather, which hopefully means we can catch up a little bit. The last thing we want to do is say, oh yeah, we'll catch up absolutely everything and then that fall over. So through that annual budget process, as part of our normal practice, we'll bring together a list of suggested carry forwards for the council to consider at its meeting on the 6th or 7th of May.
Lovely, thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on the measure that Councillor Wood was referring to, just interested there what some of the other contributing factors beyond just staff resource are to processing timeframes. In particular, how complete the applications are in initial provision, how many errors are in those that need to be corrected before they can have substantive consideration, etc.
Yeah, through the chair, there's a number of factors that go into it. Absolutely, the quality of the application and the expertise that's employed by applicants will be a huge determinant in terms of how a consent journey will go. So if it's good and it's up to spec and meets our district plan and legislative requirements, it follows that there's a smoother ride. We've taken steps to make it easier. We have a pre-application process that people can self-select or opt into. We've done over 100, I think about 140 of those. In many of those cases, it's made for an easier consent journey once we've got into the process. And my staff, including myself, have stressed the importance of trying to get ducks in a row from the outset in what is a pretty complex environment where we're always getting bombarded with new national directions and further requirements to do investigations and studies that ultimately we have to pass the cost on. And this morning we were talking about a 2-lot subdivision that was higher priced than something else. When we're having to do those assessments, it absolutely has an impact on the time it takes to get them reviewed if we don't have people in-house. The shorter answer to that question is yeah, it absolutely depends on the quality of the information going in to get a good quality result going out. The other thing I do want to just make a point on is when we talk about intergenerational development in the city, I don't mean to be sort of too glib about it, but if a large consent takes a few more working days or a few extra weeks to be processed in such a way that we get a good quality result that's built and is used as a flagship or a good high standard, which this council wants, then my approach has always been to seek that outcome. So there are a number of cases where I don't really apologise for the quality that's sort of gone into it to get a good result. There are numerous cases where I've looked at and I think we could have done better, and there's ones where I can point to flat out computer systems or things that would have helped, which we're on and the council are investing in right now to get us there. But yeah, there is a balancing act that goes around the quality and the risks that are involved in what we do.
Thanks. And how many consents are we having to send back for at least one revision before we can really work through them?
There's a couple of trains of thought there. There's an element of, there are some consents that are so deficient that we can outright reject them. And we don't do many of them because we try to avoid it from a customer service point of view. There are a few that fall into that category. The majority of the consents we do, we do have RFIs where we request further information on a variety of areas.
So more than half we're having to go back.
Probably just about all of them. There's only a small number of consents which can go through that don't have RFIs on them. It's a particular feature of consenting in this current environment and has changed in my career. So there is, what that means is there's always a relationship between the council officers and the applicant, balancing the information requirements we need to meet our district plan or legislative requirements. It's part of the game.
Thanks. I guess finally then is, because I have some sympathy for Councillor Wood's concern for Reading continuing to appear here, but also sympathy for, making sure that if we do invest further, we understand that it's giving us some traction. Is there a way that the reporting could be refined so that we could get some better visibility on how much of the delays that are beyond the statutory are truly within our scope of control versus things that no amount of money is going to fix?
I think the short answer is yes. I'll think on it. There probably are ways and means. It's just a little bit of a balancing act of the level of work the administrative work that has to go into to land on those, but it can be done. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, we've got 3 recommendations there around council receiving the report titled Quarterly Performance and Financial Report ended 31 December 2025 and related attachments presented today, 11th of February 26. 2, that council approve an increase to professional service budget of 1,300,000 and a corresponding increase to the operational revenue of 1.3 million. 3, that council approve an increase to program 2345 property solar panel installations budget of up to 420,000 and an increase to capital new revenue budget of up to 420, subject to the funding being confirmed. I'm happy to move those, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Thanks to the finance team and others, property and Condev for the report. And I'm just wary of time, so I won't talk too much. I'll ask you to vote, please. That has passed 15 votes for and 1 against. All right, we might just have a quick break. Back into the chamber at 10 past 4, please. Kia ora tātou, welcome back everybody. All right, just might make sure we've still got a quorum, we've lost a couple. Yeah, we have. Okay, we have. So, colleagues, I'm just going to, we'll just do three for something, 3 against. We've got a few items to get through, but they're quite small. I think we can get through our day by 2:05-ish if everyone plays the game. All right. Okay, our next item is number 13 on the order paper. It's our Treasury report for 6 months ending 31 December 2025, and we've got a memo there on page 231 from Steve Patterson. Invite you up, Steve.
Good afternoon again. I have nothing really significant to add. The period of the last 6 months has been relatively straightforward, and so just answer questions.
Great. Thank you, Steve. All right. The recommendation, there's no questions. Look at the recommendations there, page 231 onwards. And we have the recommendation there that we note the performance of the Council's Treasury activity for the past 6 months ending the 31 December 2025. I have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Dennison. Are there any comments? There being none. Thank you, Steve, for that, and appreciate the work in the background there. It is important, even if we have sort of raced through it. Can you vote, please? And that's passed, 13 votes for and none against. Thank you. Number 15, we've held that over the business case update because there is another report that will come to Council at the next meeting around the shortlisting of a consultant. So just in speaking to James McGill, the officer dealing with it, it's fine that we can hold that over. So we're motoring along now. Number 16, which is Linklater Reserve. And this is around disposal of the wool shed. It's page 267. We've got Aaron deputising there for property. Over to you, Aaron.
Councillor's happy to take the paper as read and any questions you might have. I think it's fairly straightforward.
So, Aaron, I'm picking that we need to get rid of this property or this building because of issues that it's causing us. Is that right?
Yeah, when we purchased the property, the sharing shed was on it. We removed the asbestos and boarded it up and kept it on the basis that it might become useful for some sort of park activity. The park's been open for quite a while. It hasn't become useful and it is getting a bit of vandalism. Nothing of significance to date, but we'd like to avoid anything of significance. We had a good offer to remove it initially for free, but then the Central Demolition did note that there's quite a bit of work around the building itself, which they're going to clean up as well. Old loading ramps and concrete features that they'll remove, so they've said they'd do it for $3,500, which we think is pretty effective.
Okay, and that just leaves us with a clean site.
Yeah, we'd do a small amount of remediation to get it to grass and perhaps some planting if it meets the airport flight path restrictions.
Right, okay, good. Okay, there's no questions. Thanks, Aaron. All right, got a recommendation to Council that we approve the contract with Central House Movers to remove the wall shed and yards located at Linklater Reserve at a cost of $3,500 plus GST. I'll look to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. There's no questions. Again, thanks to the officers. If you could thank Bill and Property for us, Aaron, and we will vote, please. That has passed, 15 votes for and none against. Okay, all right. What? We'll do the government reform affecting local government submission. That's number 5. So, who's dealing with that? David and Jono. This is a memo on page 277. It's around a number of different council submissions around local government reforms. Gentlemen. 277. Number 18.
Kia ora koutou, councillors. Thank you, Mr Mayor. We'll take the paper largely as read. Obviously, there's been a significant amount of reform proposals for the organisation and officers from across the organisation to get their head around. There's 4 submissions for approval, 2 that have been reported from information that have been prepared and lodged, were approved under delegation and already lodged. Yeah, we're happy to take any questions. Sorry, I should say too, you know Jono Ferguson-Pye well. To my right is Greg Vossler, who's a planning contractor with us, who's significant experience, obviously, in planning and has assisted Jono with pulling together the submission on the planning bill.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. Now, any questions? Councillor Johnson.
In the absence of any kind of direction from council, how have you come to a view on some of these issues? You know, to be able to present the submission.
Yeah, that's a really good question. As it happens, I was chatting to Councillor Barrett about that briefly over the break. You would have seen in the committee report, look, broadly our approach has been to try and provide constructive feedback. You know, I think preparing submissions is always a difficult thing for officers to do because there are technical views that officers will have in planning or governance type of disciplines, but we appreciate that advocacy is very much a political process, and we also appreciate that there'll be different views around the table. So in balancing all of that, our approach tends to be to recognise that, you know, any government has a mandate to drive change, and they're elected to do that. So constructive feedback is typically at the forefront of officers' minds when they're preparing submissions. So we won't get that balance right all the time. That's why you know, they've been brought to this table. A number of these submissions are not bills, they're discussion documents, but they are significant in terms of the future role of this council and other councils, so they've been brought to this table. So we do our best to balance. You know, we pick up councillors' views on a whole range of things through other topics and discussions, but it's a difficult balancing act. So.
Yeah, so rather than say opposing change outright, you would seek to influence that change in a more, as you said, constructive way, or rather the submissions will provide feedback on aspects of the change that you think might be amenable for, you know, modification, rather than saying, I mean, I'm going to paraphrase here, but, you know, we don't agree with this. This should be checked out, whatever. You just wouldn't take that sort of view?
That's correct, but it's obviously within the right of council. If they want to take a stronger oppositional position on any matter, they can, you know, pass a resolution and the submission will be amended accordingly. But constructive feedback within the context of recognising the government has a mandate for change, I guess, or they would see that. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just seeking to understand how the approach you've taken. Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks. Just a question that I know has come up at other tables and was debated in Horizons, I think, as recently as yesterday, was the question of the timing of any removal of regional council laws. The current draft of the submission is probably only tangentially referencing that. Any views from officers around potentially making that more explicit in addressing an advocacy-related position around
that? You know, there, in terms of the simplifying local government submission, there are components of that submission that touch on that in terms of the resourcing challenges that will face, particularly mayors, that will flow onto deputy mayors and councillors in terms of running, governing the city council and other councils, and then taking on the regional council business. So I think, obviously a potential solution to that component is the regional council are able to continue to govern the regional council while a reorganisation proposal is developed concurrently. So I think that's probably something that is better to come from around this table. Obviously there's views around representative governance and fair processes and things. So look, I think that's, it's not in the submission, but obviously that's something that could be added if the council were supportive of signalling that within the submission.
Great, thank you. That's it for me, Mr. Mayor, but just indicate there is an additional recommendation.
All right, that's things done. Thank you, gentlemen. So we've got a number of recommendations there, and I'll get... yeah, okay. We'll do the additional one first. If we can get that up on screen, please. Do you have a seconder for that? Okay. Councillor Dennison. Yeah, I did take it. All right. Okay, Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colleagues, so just to screen now, I'm looking to amend the Simplifying Local Government submission to advocate that regional councillors continue in their role until the next local government elections, and that service be concurrent with establishment of a group mandated to explore new local government arrangements for the region. So I think I've got the language there clear enough, but the idea is that rather than knocking them out halfway through the term, that they would serve those 3 years, and that concurrent alongside that would be an opportunity for a group to come together and to work on future arrangements. Two basic reasons I think that this should be explicit rather than implicit in the submission. The first is that we are incredibly lucky to live in one of the world's best liberal democracies, and we should value that and respect that. The reality is that the people in this community and throughout the Regional Council of Horizons and throughout the whole nation voted for regional councillors for 3 years. And in my view, wholesale removal of an entire layer of government is basically something that usually the history books call a coup. And I don't think that that's the sort of precedent that we want to start the next chapter of local government with. It would absolutely fly in the face of community voice and their vote and actually democracy itself. So I would hope that that reason would be enough in and of itself. But I think there's also quite a pragmatic reason to consider this, and that is, turns out there's a lot that goes on at regional council. Some of our parliamentarians may not yet realize that, but certainly in the 9 years that I've been there representing the city around just the public transport piece of the puzzle, there's a huge amount that goes on. There's a huge amount of complexity there, and knocking out an entire layer of elected representation is a really odd way to start trying to do something strategic in terms of the future of regional government, and potentially some chaos and unintended consequences by pulling that out midway through a term. So I think a much safer approach would be to have a concurrence of continued service from elected regional councillors with a group that is beginning to explore and eventually determine the future arrangements. So I hope you can support that on this basis. 2028 will be here soon enough.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was supporting this additional recommendation because actually when we're talking about our submission currently that we don't want Crown involvement as far as those commissioners or other observers, I don't believe that one vote for one council is fair, and so those kind of things just play out to keep the status quo. And that's notwithstanding that the mayors, I guess, in a fair focus and priorities around picking up the role and then trying to do that diligently and not losing focus on their own constituents with our own city or relative districts. And I think that's a big ask. And so the first question is, why would you do that? There's no savings, because you'd have to recognise the other appointments. And then the just fair workload, I just don't believe that that's reasonable to be based on our mayors. It also shortfalls the Māori ward vote that the constituents actually voted and supported and have representation in that vein. And that will get, it's silent on how that gets reflected. In fact, it seems like it won't. And then who sews into the input of what local government will look like in the future? And it gives, I think, an overemphasis that the mayors are the ones that get to sow into that direction. In fact, I'd question whether that's the right mechanism for the personnel to be actually working out what is the best future-proof solution ultimately, and I think that's a wider conversation. And so therefore I don't see it needing to be rushed. I certainly don't support, when I first heard this proposition, I was kind of like, wow, out of all the things you do to shift it, that's the first game plan move. Is just questionable, I guess, the priority of it. And so therefore I'm very comfortable to support this and promote it for you to also consider. Thank you.
All right. You don't need to write a reply, do you? Okay, we'll vote on the amendment, which is up there around simplifying local government submission, be amended to advocate that regional councils continue in their role until the next government elections. All right, we'll vote. That is passed 11 votes for and 2 against. Okay, we'll come back to the substantive, which is around council approve the following submissions on government reform processes: the planning bill, the building or earthquake prone buildings amendment bill, simplifying local government as amended, supporting growth through development levy system, and 2, that council note the following submissions on government reform processes, being the EM bill, emergency management, and the rates target model for New Zealand. I'm happy to move those, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, and I'll open it up for any comments. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I just wanted to quickly acknowledge the staff for this massive amount of work over the holiday period that we had, and I posted a policy chat on Instagram about the volume and the timing and the scope and level of impact of this program. It had really high engagement, and the main view that was expressed was just wearied outrage. I so identified with that, but I found reading all of these submissions in sequence quite depressing, although they're very good submissions. But I was really pleased to see that centralisation and ministerial discretion came up quite strongly, and I won't talk to them all, but once again I find that these paint a picture of us being in a position of having to adopt prescribed plans before the critical information is in place. And I think the planning submission says, as it stands, the intended sequencing of the instruments would see regional spatial plans being prepared before the environmental limits and relevant standards they are required to implement are in place. And there's a 6-month period to overhaul the development and land use strategy while we're continuing to try and meet our BAU targets in resource management and land use activity, which we've heard is difficult, while we're establishing secretariats to develop these plans and to try and find resourcing and people capacity and to pay for that among a rates-capped environment. Just seemed like a recipe, well, a non-deliverable situation. Just once, I'd like to see a workable, fundable, well-thought-out plan come from this government that doesn't just set out the desired outcome, but also the actual plan of how that outcome and the transition can be feasibly achieved. Release the standards first, then roll out the systems to deliver them. Like, duh. I think the submissions say that, but in a more eloquent way. So thank you very much for the enormous amount of work that's gone into putting really constructive and well-criticised submissions. Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted as well to add my voice of appreciation to officers for the work on all 6 of these, but in particular, the submissions on planning, the submissions on the euphemistically called simplifying local government, and the submission around the rates cap are particularly notable as excellent pieces of advocacy in my view. And, you know, as we see through this change that is proposed, increasingly councils will be advocates rather than decision makers. So it's good to see that we do have a strong team here and ready to advocate. It was in my first term that I worked out that we called it local government, but it was actually local administration. And boy, if this doesn't underline it.
Okay. Thank you, colleagues. We will vote. And that is passed 12-4, 1 against and 1 abstain. Okay, we now come through to number 17, Development Subsidy Fund Application. Invite Jono up to speak to this. This is around Te Ranga Maro Charitable Trust. Page 271 of your papers.
Kia ora koutou. I'll be really honest, I was here as a support person for Amy to talk to this paper, so look, I'm happy to take the report as read and in my capacity as City Planning Manager answer questions to the best of my ability, given the knowledge that I have. Thank you.
Thank you for the honesty. All right. Colleagues, page 271, are there any questions? So, Jono, this is around the foregoing of development or resource consent fees. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. And value is $6,273.
Correct. My understanding is that's what's left in the fund.
And is that the? Oh, that's what's left in the fund.
Correct. My understanding is
okay.
that they would have liked more, but that was all that was left in that particular fund at this moment.
Okay, good. All right, that's it. Thank you. Well done. You've been released. Okay, recommendation to council. A development subsidy fund application. The council approve the allocation of $6,273 from the development subsidy fund to support consent fees and development contributions for Te Ranga Maro Charitable Trust. I'm happy to move that, seconded by Deputy Mayor. In the interest of time, I'm not going to really comment too much other than hopefully you'll support this. It's part of, so that fund is now extinguished, isn't it? It's utilised, yeah, for this financial year. Okay, I'll ask you to vote, please. That is passed 13 votes for and 1 against. Okay, we'll now go to number 19, which is the wastewater treatment plant Nature Calls quarterly update. Mike Monahan, our manager of Three Waters, will present this, page 347. Mike.
Good afternoon again, councillors. We were meant to have Anna with us online, but obviously the day's got away on us a wee bit, and Anna has been called away to another meeting. So if there's any planning particular questions, I'll try and answer them, but I'll get back to you if I can't. Apart from that, the paper's fairly self-explanatory. It's a quarterly update. The main thrust of our work over the last quarter has been digesting and understanding the new national standards for wastewater, which we are currently just measuring against the long list of options that Council decided last year. We are bringing a paper back in March to start refining that long list for options that could go forward. You'll see in the paper that we've been working diligently with iwi over a number of projects within Nature Calls, mainly the discharge options for if one of the options going forward should be a river discharge. We need to do some more work around what a river discharge structure might look like. We've been engaging with all three of our iwi partners on that particular piece of work. Happy to take the paper as read, and I'll take any questions.
So, Mike, I'm just looking at 3.1 and just around the existing discharge structure at Tocha Road, which you say here is currently not meeting design conditions due to a build-up of aggregate. Is that right? From a bank formation?
So over the last, or possibly 10 years since the last flood in 2015, the river is quite a dynamic environment, and a large gravel beach has formed in front of the current discharge. It's not impeding the discharge, but what it's done is it's impacted the mixing ability, and the wastewater needs to mix relatively quickly to have a lower impact on the periphyton growth downstream. So part of the work for Nature Calls will be to understand what our options are to improve mixing in the river if that becomes the preferred option of council to go to river.
So a practical person would ask, why haven't we done something with the gravel bank? It's obviously been man-made or a contribution from the gorge and everything else.
Resource consent issues, Mr Mayor, to work in the river. We now have a resource consent to do some minor alterations of that gravel bank, but because it's a natural structure that's formed within the river, it's covered by Horizon's consent conditions. So we're working with iwi to understand what that means and what we might do.
Yeah, okay. So are you making any progress? Because I didn't realise that was a big impediment.
Look, let me be clear. It's not causing large issues with our current consent, but for future consent conditions, when we're doing the effective periphyton for the new standards, we will have to have a fully mixed discharge into the river to meet the conditions of what we think and probably know will be the conditions set on the periphyton risk assessment. So yeah, we're not in any kind of real issues at the moment, but going forward we will need to have a discharge structure wherever we end up.
Okay. Councillor Barrett.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Mike. Just around option E, pages 348 through 49. From memory, we got to that specific ratio and quite a specific land area in the consent that was then paused. So is this reevaluation just going to be very narrow around whether that specific acreage works or doesn't work, or is it going to be a bit broader and kind of say what acreage could work in a dual discharge?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we're still doing the technical work to fully understand the impact of the standards on dual land and river discharge. What we do know is the new standards say you can either go to land for a part of the year or to the river for the part of the year. There's no true hybrid, which we submitted on. We wanted a hybrid solution, but there's no true hybrid to say you can have 50% to river, 50% to land. So that's what we're just working through at the moment to understand what the size of the land parcels would need to be to accommodate a full discharge, and what the impact would be for the time of the year that going to the river would have. And now, one thing I need to point out was when we included option E, I tried to be clear that option E as it stands does not include the really high level upgrade and treatment at the Tocha Road treatment plant. It's a very stripped back upgrade of the plant, and would include much higher nitrogen and phosphorus amounts going to the river. So we need to consider that when we bring the technical work back to you in March. That'll be one of the things we'll discuss in more detail, but option E does not include that real high level treatment.
Great, thanks. The report does go on to refer to the guidance that we have around dual discharges. Could that be made available to elected members, just so that we can understand actually what's the situation there? 'Cause I guess to me, that's quite a surprise to hear that there's actually no true hybrid now available, that it's an either or, flick back and forth.
I thought I had shared it at the last meeting, but maybe not. So we've got these implementation materials that Taumata ROI have released for both discharge to water and discharge to land. I'll certainly make sure that link, it's available on the website, but I'll make sure that link's shared with councillors so you can have a look at that.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
All right, thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. It's a bit of a moving feast, how things are moving there. So I've got a recommendation there, colleagues, to council. Council received the report titled Wastewater Treatment Plant Nature Calls Quarterly Update presented the 11th February 2026. I'm happy to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. There be no comments, we will vote. That's passed 14 votes for and none against. Okay, all right, we move through to our last, which is the council work schedule. And that's on page 351. And I'll pass to the CEO. The only one I would comment on, those members that were at the Arena PSG would note that there'll probably be a delay, slight delay, maybe a month of bringing back that report, but that's up to the CE and officers, but the officers aren't here that were in the meeting, but that's number 7 on the list. I'll pass to you, Wade.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's right. So we've got 25th of Feb for Arena 5 update. I understand the meeting was only just held late yesterday, so the team will just be preparing some documentation around that. If it isn't that, it'll be that first meeting in March that would come back, I would suggest. Happy to take any other questions.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Councillor Ballin.
Thank you. I was just wondering when we might expect the Ring Road report that's being deferred from today. Would that?
Yeah, it'll be March and it'll be bigger.
Okay, thank you.
If it can be bigger. I don't know, it was about 400 pages or something, it'll be bigger. But it'll have a more defined, a consultant attached to it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we've got the recommendation there to accept our work schedule for February 2026. I'm happy to move it, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. We will vote. That's passed 14 votes for and none against. So, look at that. We're now very, very close to the finish. And surprise, surprise, we've got a workshop. No. Lou's going to throw his insulin pen at me. All right, we'll finish with karakia. I'll invite the Deputy Mayor.
Tēnā koe, Your Worship, o te rā, tēnā tātou. Ko matua mātou mahi, our work here is finished for the moment. Mō tēnei wā. Manaki tia I a mātou katoa, good health and blessings upon us all. O mātou hoa, our friends, our colleagues, o mātou whānau, and all of our whānau, our families. Ai o ki te rangi, peace to the universe. Tēnā koutou.
Kia ora. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to the staff.